How much?
Hi guys, Somnia. Hi guys, Somnia. I I had I was about to go to sleep, but I didn't. I blamed the coffee I had, but that's fine. But I was thinking to myself, um, I was thinking to myself, that there were things that I haven't covered that I wanted to cover, uh, which I need to do a little bit more research on it regarding. So there's this. I've been watching a lot of not watching. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts regarding red light theory and like fucking vaccines. Um and there's this podcast called Danny Jones, and he interviews weird fucking he interviews interesting people, and one of them, let me see if I can find it. I forgot. See, I listened to it. I'm a fucking fool. One second. One second. Danny Jones clips. Okay. No, that's not it. But I will. So okay. So he's been lately been having two scientists, Jack Krause and another scientist, a microbiologist called name is Kevin McKierman. Kerman. So this particular show that Kevin was on, he was speaking about THC, um, benefits of THC and whatnot, and how the cannabis industry is cannibalizing itself, right? But then all of a sudden, it got into a really weird thing where they were talking something about turbo cancers. Now, this whole idea of turbo cancer, let me see if I could pull this up. Because I've been listening to this stuff, and like, here's the thing about the turbo cancer idea, which you have to forgive me. I found on Wikipedia, but according to Wikipedia, which I don't want to give too much credence to, turbo cancer is an anti-vaccination conspiracy theory alleging that people vaccinated against COVID 19, especially with mRNA vaccines, are suffering from high incidence of fast developing cancers. Although the idea has been spread by a number of vaccine opponents, including several health professionals, turbo cancer is not supported by cancer research, and there is no evidence that COVID 19 vaccinations cause or worsen cancer. Now, here's the thing. Listen to this podcast with Kevin McKierman. You would think in your mind that all vaccines are bad, not just COVID-19, but like the stuff that you give to your babies that's all of a sudden causing a high rise in cancer. Which the thing is, it's that that's very it's very disingenuous. But before we continue, since Danny Jones has a clips channel, where you could hear him say this. 1 second. If it plays. Oh, fuck. There you go.
So what you were saying from your study on the cancer cells, sequencing the cancer cells, you were finding these things, these plasmids in the cancer cells. How much later? This was like a year later.
Yeah, this person was 4x vaccinated and
4 times. Wow.
A year later. So,
and then what does that mean? What does that mean for them? The fact that it's still in these cells. Were these cells there prior, or were these cells created? And then what does this mean for people that aren't vaccinated, that are in proximity to these people?
All right, that's a couple points there. So, so this patient's deceased. Unfortunately, they have a year after vaccination, they got their first biopsy. A week after that, they got another biopsy, and then in 4 weeks they were dead.
Wow!
And they got a postmortem biopsy as well. We sequenced the postmortem in the first one, and we're looking at the differences between those two. Mm-hmm. There is a plasmid in there that codes for spike. It's the sequence of that spike is a little different. It's a lot different than the spike that Pfizer has in the vaccines we've sequenced previously. So this has raised a question as to what is really the source of this plasmid, because the differences there have raised alarm bells. Like, it's not exactly what we saw in. Now, we've only sequenced like 2 other lots before, so we don't have good surveillance of all the different lots for Pfizer. They could have different plasmids in each one. They could all be the same. We don't know. We need to do more to sort that out. But there is another hypothesis that could be at play here that leads to a much more frightening scenario, I think, in my mind, which is in the middle of the pandemic, there's a paper that was published that really went unnoticed. It was a group in Seattle that showed that their lab people were testing positive for COVID, but didn't have COVID. And they only tested positive. If you remember the COVID test, they actually had 3 assays usually testing for the virus. They would look at the spike, they'd look at nucleocapsid, and they'd look at the envelope region. So, and if all 3 lit up, they were pretty confident the virus was there. Occasionally, one of them would drop out, like the S target would drop out once in a while. They had that happen in Europe. It was called S target failure. And they would say, all right, we don't really know if you've got COVID because only 2 out of the 3 assays are working. So what was happening in Seattle in this lab is only the nucleocapsid test was going off. And that was really weird. And it was in all their lab staff. And it turned out that same lab was working on a vaccine that had nucleocapsid cloned into something very similar to Pfizer's plasmid there. So that somehow infected all the lab people, and then it got out of the lab and infected their housemates. And so the paper hypothesized that, okay, this must be because this is a shuttle vector that can grow in E. coli and can grow in mammalian cells. That means it's transmissible. Our vaccine in the lab infected our staff and got out into the wild. This was another lab leak that didn't hit the radar anywhere. And they kind of wrote it off as, no worries, it's nucleocapsid, it's not spike. If it were spike, maybe we could have gotten those people some spikopathy, because the spike protein itself is really pro-inflammatory. Nucleocapsid, perhaps not as much.
Here's the problem with the clip itself. It's like, there's a lot of technobabble. Like, if you ever watch any sci-fi video or show, like they say some shit and it sounds scientific-y and complex, so it'll be like bigger than it sounds. The problem is that one can make an educated guess about the vaccines were not properly trial tested. It was pushed out way too soon and we didn't know the side effects of it. It could cause problems. You can make an educated guess even without doing much research and digging onto that. But the problem is you can say there's complications to the vaccine. It's a whole different thing when you talk about turbo cancer. Like, you could cause cancer rapidly. And if this idea becomes engrossed, and it could be another feather in the cap of anti-vaxxers to argue not to vaccinate their kids or vaccinate themselves, regardless of what the government says. Like, we've gotten to a point where we are so distrusting of the government that it becomes hard. It becomes difficult for the populace to be pragmatic about stuff. And the fact that and the fact that they're using the turbo cancer thing bullshit as a way of saying that you shouldn't even vaccinate your kids for any vaccines because they could cause. Because the original idea was like, oh, vaccines cause autism, which is unfounded. Now the turbo cancer thing is gonna. The only thing it's gonna turbo the bullshit about not vaccinating kids. So there's that, and like I said, when I listen to these podcasts, when I listen to this podcast, and I listen to these guests, there's a part of me that feels as though they are completely full of shit. They're completely full of shit. 1 second.
The only places that had the
The only thing I worry about is that what if the bullshit they're spouting has a negative truth to it? So it's hard for me to be closed-minded at times. But, you know, there's another example in this podcast that I wanted to point out. Hold on 1 second.
so obviously they knew that this stuff was going to be in there because that was purposeful. You needed that to actually create it for it to replicate.
Yes.
And they didn't have a good enough protocol to get rid of it.
Moderna had a better protocol. In fact, what's really key about this whole story is if you read Moderna's patents, they speak to this problem. That one, it's very difficult to figure out how much of this is left behind with PCR alone. So Stefan Bancel has a patent that says don't use qPCR to measure what's left behind. But they also have some other patents in there on techniques to get rid of it. And the reason it is so important to get rid of is they write in that patent showing that it's oncogenic. If you leave this DNA around, it will insert into your genome and can create cancer. So you have to get rid of it. And that's written straight into their own patent estate.
So is this the same story that Jack Kruse was telling us about SV40?
It is the same story because the origin of replication that they have in Pfizer is an SV40 origin of replication. And they also have, you'll see that little promoter thing up there in pink. They have another promoter over by
I want
your...
to pause this, and I wanted to also speak about that as well too. 1 second. Where are you? New topic, right? So if I look up, let me see if I can look up SV40. SV40. There's a. Yeah, cause not all of a sudden. Oh, what the fuck? There's people. Hi, people. Way. So, if you look up, as I'm under trust system is of course, Belinda, of course. So we go to Australia because they always cover this fantastically.
There would be so many out there watching right now who would be very fearful of getting the flu. What do you say to them?
Get the flu shot. And I think being aware that these things can be serious, so, seeking medical attention early if you can, if you start to feel unwell. I think that's important over this, especially over the flu season and things like that. If you've got a reason such as being pregnant or maybe the elderly or these people that have got immune issues, they really need to seek attention early.
Vaccines save millions of lives each year. What we've done, we've eliminated smallpox, one of the great killers. In countries that you have accessibility of measles vaccines, we've essentially taken that off the table. Polio is on its way of being eradicated. A variety of other diseases, hepatitis B, measles, mumps, rubella, it's so many different diseases. When you focus in on influenza can be prevented to a certain extent by vaccines. It isn't a perfect vaccine yet. There's no such a thing as a perfect vaccine against any disease. But influenza, even though it isn't as optimal as we would like it, if we vaccinated more people, we would save more lives. And the misperception when people say, oh, influenza, it's nothing to really worry about, they're confusing relatively benign upper respiratory infections with influenza. And they say a lot of times when a person would just get an upper respiratory infection, they'll say, what's the matter? And they say, oh, I got the flu. That's wrong. You don't have the flu. When you have influenza, you know you have influenza.
Have you had your vaccine yet?
First day we usually get people to come to our meeting and vaccinate everyone.
You too?
Every nurse in the unit gets their vaccine.
So a medical professional gets a vaccine. Why the hell wouldn't the rest of us?
It's obviously an area that gets controversy, but it's not a difficult decision to me. It's not a difficult decision.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Get the shot.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I do, my wife does, my kids do. So, and it's a considered decision, but to me it seems the right decision.
Yeah, 1 second. 'cause
Welcome
they really
back.
covered
Over the years-
1 second. Fuck. Fucking Australia is interesting. 1 second. Because there was something else here. No, this is now a debate. Oh, here you go. This is it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a senior health Canada official sticking to Canada and health and all that. Says the pharma giant Pfizer made a conscious decision to not advise regulators that its mRNA COVID vaccine contained a DNA sequence from the simian virus. So you know that's been all that controversy. What?
I was saving that for the second half. I have that.
Oh.
I have that. But you could do it. You could do it. It'll save me some effort.
This information appears among multiple emails between staff from key drug regulators, including Health Canada, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and the European Medicines Agency. The information was obtained through an access to information request. I thought that, this was covered, but I don't think I think this is a fairly new thing. I understand that there have been internal discussions at CBER, Center for
Pfizer. So it said 1 second. Let me see if I can pull this up. It's like, God, like, gee, well, because. So it says right here, right? Pfizer choose not to tell regulators about SV40 sequence in Covishar's Health Canada official, right? And I was trying to look up SV40. Cover what could be a mechanism. Yeah, because I was trying to find it. Because I was like fucking couldn't sleep. It doesn't really go into ChatGPT. What the fuck? Okay. So let's look up SV. Hold on. Let's see. SV. Let's see. 1 second. Yeah, let me do this. Okay. SV40. Okay, here you go. I got it, bitch. There you go. always trust ChatGPT, however. SV40 is a DNA virus that can infect both monkeys and humans. It's a polymovirus and is sometimes known as simian vasculating virus 40. SV40 is known to cause tumors in animals, but in humans it usually remains dormant. However, there is evidence that SV40 can cause infections in humans and may be an emergent pathogen. SV40 was accidentally given to humans in the 1950s and 60s. The polio vaccines contaminated with monkey kidney cells. SV40 has not been present in any vaccine since 1963. SV40 has been linked to some human cancers, including mesothelioma, osteosarcoma, pancreatic tumors, brain tumors, non-Hodgkin lymphoma. However, there is no consensus on whether SV40 is a potential human pathogen. Detailed DNA replication. SV40 is a circular molecule that replicates as a circle. DNA replication begins at an origin of replication and proceeds in both directions. SV40 hijacks cellular transport, membrane penetration, disassembly machineries to promote infection. This is okay. So when the argument has been made, or alleged argument can be made, that this disease, this virus, was injected into the COVID-19 vaccine, it's like you. If this was truly about, if you want to go into the anti-vaxxers rhetoric and argue that they are trying to do population control, then they have to be very specific on who gets what or when they get it. Because if it's population control, you have an educated guess that it will be a widespreading thing, right? But again, when you don't have a theory based upon fact and everything's shrouded in mystery, the problem is that you can cause irreparable damage on scientific breakthroughs, and you're going to get people scared if this propagates without any evidence to back it up. I'm only speaking about what could happen, what can happen. Look at Flat Earth. People scoffed at Flat Earth being a thing, or being a theory. Now all of a sudden, you have prominent people talk about Flat Earth like it's fact. The turbo cancer could make it so that people could use that as a way to get the vaccine, or not to give their kid the vaccine. Like, you can't, like, at some point you would have to trust the science enough that it's not going to kill you. Make an educated guess. Be smart about it. At the end of the day, if there is a quote-unquote vicious disease, you want to protect you and your family. I think what the problem is with the whole rhetoric of turbo cancer and whatnot, it's forcing people to take the vaccine. Because if you don't take the vaccine, you're a bad person and you're not allowed to work, live, whatnot. I think that's why people have so much distrust with the cancer, with the vaccine, because you could just end up having discourse, conspiracy theories, the whole 9 yards. But the other person that has spoke about the HB40 and the fact that this thing could cause cancer is, someone by the name Jack Kress. I need to timestamp that interview, my own timestamp, not the person's timestamp, but I need to do my own timestamps about that. And that's a whole other can of worms of what I guess. But suffice it to say, this is not just my. This is not a clear cut. This is not 100% my personal factor on this. I'm just speaking about this because it just came to me as an idea. It's something I wanted to talk about. But it's like I listened to it and I'm trying to work out the kinks on how to speak about this and make it interesting for y'all and for you not to get bored. But for some weird reason, at fucking 1 o'clock in the morning, EST my time, you lovely people are coming in and watching me rant and rave about fucking SB40 fucking vaccine nonsensical BS. Oh my god. But yeah, it's fascinating what you can find, actually. Oh yeah, that's right, Key. I told you about him. Yes. Yes, I told him that he's interesting in red light. Might do a little bit more research on that. I want to talk about it a little bit more. Kia, give me a second. That guy's a dumbass. Yeah. Oh yeah, actually, wait 1 second. Can I look up Jack Kurtz? Boop boop boop. No. No, bitch. This
Just
one.
together. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna show you this person. Let's see if they got timestamps. Like the Becker. Yeah.
So you may have heard.
So this gentleman, well, I'm ping ponging like a fucking ADHD person. This is Jack Kurtz. This is what me and Key were talking about. He speaks about red light being. He speaks about how all electronics emit blue light and it's causing our dopamine centers to be overcharged and depleted and just all wonky inside. This is why he argues for everyone to use red light, use red light because it helps with function. Anyways, he is a quote unquote exile brain surgeon. He speaks he claims that he speaks power of the truth or whatnot. One of the things that he speaks about is something called MK Ultra, aka the Ultra Blue Light weapon. Listen to this.
Of this program called MK Ultra.
Once or twice.
Okay. So MK Ultra is the merging of two things. The first thing gets merged is this idea from Dallas that they're going to study it. Then there's another guy who's a 1937 surgeon, SS guy named Kurt Plotkin. Plotkin worked with the Nazis. His idea was mind control through the use of Mexican peyote. So he starts doing his stuff, and the CIA is looking at the effect of light and wireless technology and things like that these guys are using. and they begin to study it. They hire a guy named Sidney Gottlieb. Gottlieb runs the program from 53 through, which we think 64, before, of course, all these things are destroyed. But there's a lot of interesting things that the government finds out that is transferred to DARPA. When does DARPA first form? 1958. So all this information from the CIA and FBI are transferred into DARPA.
Right.
DARPA then takes it the next level. They go and they hire a guy in New Orleans. I told you we'd eventually come back to New Orleans. A guy named Alton Oshner. He's first an FBI asset as a surgeon, but then he becomes a CIA asset because of this issue here. They go and hire a PhD researcher named Delgado, and he's working in the Tulane neurosurgery department and neurology. They get him out of that really quick, and they send him to Mexico, and they start putting wires into the bull's head to find out, can they stop and control the bull using electric signals? Why? Because they already have started to learn about Becker's work. So now this is the idea. Now they're trying to execute. They're trying to use this as a weapon.
Yeah.
Got it?
Right.
So what happens in this whole time, the crazy stories that you've heard Bobby and I talk about on the Tetragrammaton podcast, where Gottlieb basically takes the Air Force plane over St. Louis and drops LSD on the whole city in the mid 1950s to see the effect. They found out mescaline didn't work, so the next step after that was to use LSD. That's one of the famous things that we did find out from the Church Commission that they physically did. So this is what I would tell you is Operation Northwoods, probably negative 2.0, which is when the government thought it was a good idea that they could just do whatever the fuck they wanted to the United States populace, they wouldn't know it, so they didn't need any informed consent. Okay? A lot of people talk about Tuskegee and the airmen and the syphilis. Dude, there's a pattern with the industrial military complex. When they want to do something, they don't even ask for forgiveness. They don't ask for permission either. They just do it. So when they do this and Gottlieb fails, what sightlines are really good for DARPA is this work that Delgado's doing is amazing. So they said, okay, you could do it with wired technology, and they were able to turn the bull off as soon as he was going to spear the matador. They said, let's try to do this wireless. Why? They had all the patents and everything they stole from Tesla. They also had all Marconi's work. At this same time, remember, Motorola is now one of the guys that's the industrial military company. They know that wireless telephony is actually coming. So they decide to employ it here first. So Delgado finds out that actually it does work. You can do it without wires. You don't have to do brain surgery on the animal to do it. And then they asked the next question.
They didn't have to install anything in the brain?
No, they did not. But this was the key step. This is the step where I think your audience, people find it incredulous when I tell them. The next step was, could you do this using light and light alone? And it turns out they found out you could. If you use blue light specifically, it actually destroys the dopamine reward tracks in your brain. Just so you know, Meta and Google today own those patents. Remember who's the Google patent attorney? Nicole Shanahan. So I said, Nicole, do you remember all the work you had to do? And she goes, yeah. She goes, I could never figure out what all this was about. Well, you need to know a little bit about Google's history. Google was formed in 1995 when DARPA gave the search algorithm to these two cats from Stanford.
So what I like about Jack Krause is like Jack Krause, unlike many of the guests you see when they have weird points of view and stuff, the man has a very clear, somewhat prepared monologue about his ideas. Like, he has everything laid out, point by point. But just to make it clear, he argues that the government has been trying to figure a way to control a populace through other means. And it got to a point that they use wireless patents from Tesla and Marconi. Marconi's the guy who invented the radio, and Tesla, with alternate electricity. Oh yeah, they figure out a way how to do it without. They figure out how to use uh, a way to affect living things wirelessly. And the fact that this blue light, the fear of blue light has caused an uproar in everyone to the point that they're trying to get rid of blue light. The fact that people are now investing money into red light sensors, light. Hold on, 1 second. 1 second. What's it? Actually, I'll be right back. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. Had to use the bathroom. But yeah, the idea that blue light is causing everyone to be dumbfounded and stupid is like, I could see the argument on that, but it's like, it's one thing if you're unaware that in a more macro scale, you being a slave to your technology, like looking at your phone, sitting on a computer X amount of times, whatnot. Like you need it. You need a dopamine rush through scrolling through social media, mobile games, whatnot. But I feel as though like I think if you're aware of your tech addiction, then you would be more prepared and have a plan of trying to limit your exposure. And try to use the time you have on these devices to learn about something or listen to something or whatever the case is. But I do the best I can to see other points of views, to listen to other point of views, and then maybe have an opinion and then formulate it another way if there's new information coming out or that corroborates it or whatnot. But as of right now, when you have a cult of personality like Jack Bruce, it sounds like what he is saying is believable because you, like, if I do decide to explore this a little bit more, he is very sure of himself. He knows he has every date, every name, every place, everything to the T. So it's impossible for you to question him because he's so sure of himself. But with the other gentleman, which again, I'm just want to touch upon it just a little bit because again, I tried to go to sleep after the first stream, but I'm like, you know what, let me just do this a little bit and see how it goes. So, but if you dissect these guests, if you dissect any guest, and you just listen to them, and you just close your eyes and listen to what they're saying and how they're saying it, like, a way a person says something is more identifiable of intentions than body language. Because if you add if you and are going pausing more on the subject that you should be an expert on, then it just shows that you're trying to either A, figure out what to say because you have nothing to say, lying, or trying to dumb it down. So wait, let me fix that. You're either A, bullshitting, or B, you're just trying to simplify the message. No one pauses and tries to overcomplicate what they're trying to say. That's very counterintuitive. And I want to go into more depth on it. Especially about, I'm touching here and there about Turkey, Kansas. But again, I don't want it to make it seem like I have a very hardcore thing of saying I believe in the Turkey, Kansas. Like, I'm just going to say that it's just a very dangerous rhetoric to have. Like, proven vaccines are proven because they save us from dying. I still think that we have to look more into what pharmacies are, what pharmaceutical companies are doing with medicine and vaccine. Because again, it doesn't make sense to have a populace fully healed. There's no money in the cure. There's money in the treatment, but not the cure. And that's why there's so many fucking boosters for COVID-19. But that's neither here or there about that. But yeah, I just want to get that brainworm out there. I want to thank everyone for coming in. You guys are blessings and a half. Oh. Before I go, let me just read what everyone has said. Once you start getting used to the scent of grifters, they absolutely stink every time you sniff one out. What's up, Bootrix? or whatever. I'm not explaining that right. Like, to me, it makes sense because who's gonna hire Alex Jones in his case? He needs to eat. That's why I see more human than most, considering what I do not know. With Alex, you can tell the crowd products are there to fund the message. With guys like this, you can tell the message there is self-crowd products. Yeah, and the host isn't equipped to push back. The host is just to be like, cool, tell me more. Hard eyes. Rogan asks questions and doesn't push back. Rogan's a 2.5. Let's see, I think a lot of people. Shocker. I mean, do you never gonna believe, but the guy sells shit of his website. As a position, he used the young word that you can't type in chat, and he's born when that I realize it has. Okay, Alex Jones says our passion. Oh wow, everyone is just it's great. I love it. Perfect. But yeah, you guys have a wonderful day. I hope everyone does well. You're beautiful and blessing and great.